Hello everyone, and welcome to Warframe. Now, there is a lot about this game that some people don't really know about, and that's due to part of the fact that they don't really read the lore. But some people would rather listen to it than actually try and read it. So, on this note, I will be starting a Warframe lore series. Now, on this video, we'll be focusing on two of the main enemy factions, the Corpus and the Grineer. Now, in the Grineer, there are several different types of Grineer. Their basic is the Lancer. It's a rather heavily armored for a very common Grineer. Their main weapon is the Grakata. Okay, or Grakata, whichever one you want to pronounce it. Okay, now, the lore of them is, it all starts down with the two main queens. Okay, the names of them I'm not really too sure of, but they hold a purpose to basically unite the entire solar system with the entire solar system as an empire. Okay, all of this. Now, they have their one main in command, Vor. Okay, Captain Vor. And he plays a part in various missions that you have to go kill and farm. His secondary pistol is here. And what you'll have to fight against in the tutorial, Vor's prize, in order to get his little, I guess, technology in order to get your Warframe free of his persuasion, I guess you could say, because in the beginning he tries to take your Warframe from you. But anyway, the Grineer were once humans, but rather than following the natural birthing order of what an actual mammal is, they decided to turn towards cloning, in order to increase the number in their ranks to take over the entire solar systems. The twin queens, the sisters, have devised a plan to transform the entire scattered colonies into an empire across the planets. The sisters have sent their most trusted brood on a vital quest, the Tenno, hidden asleep and must never awake. Now, the Tenno is what we play as, but we'll get to that in the next video. The Grineer are the first enemies encountered by newly reawakened Tenno. They utilize technology crude but undeniably effective weapons. They use gas-powered explosives, lead. They use like what our modern-day technology is. They use fire, explosives. They don't use futuristic kind of laser crap. If they can make a gun out of it, they'll slap together a few pieces of trash, put a spring-loaded stock in it, put some lead in there, and off you go. You're firing at the Tenno. Now, let's see here. They do not use shields like the Corpus do, and they are not nearly as technologically advanced as the Corpus, so they use armor. Okay, usually alloy plates or ferrite plates. Now, let's see here. They use cloning to increase their ranks, and they don't really know how to perfectly clone themselves. So with each generation of them cloning themselves, their genetic code gets more and more deteriorated. Some is come down to the point with all the generations of being cloned, it's come down to the point to where some of them aren't even born with arms or even legs. Parts of their faces are deformed. They age faster. They don't even grow up, some of them. Let's see here. To a man, the Grineer are clones, products of an ancient, half-remembered technologies. Copies of copies of copies of copies. Grineer soldiers are produced in industrial quantities and are all genetically defective. Their genome damaged by the invasive cloning procedures used to birth each generation. See, there again, they use cloning to basically create the next generation. They don't go through the natural male and female birthing. As a result, they have very limited lifespans. So, right off the bat, they're already like 30 years old and half-ass made. And half of a life cycle that is limited to only a few years. However, these defects are mass-produced as Grineer themselves, allowing for the rapid standardization of techno-augmentations, or adaptions between such generations. It can be argued that the Grineer are better at fixing broken bodies than they are at making ones that function to begin with, but then again, you gotta take into consideration that they aren't, some of them, because of all the cloning, they're cloning degeneratives, basically. They get worse every single time. So, literally, they don't have firepower, they have numbers, okay? And some of their technologies really aren't even that great. Now, switching from their lore to what they normally use in combat. As you see, they have those with shields, okay, that usually have shields in front of them. They have long machetes, and even the females, not just the males, the females are cloned as well. Okay, the bigger ones are cloned into heavy gunners. And again, they don't really have legs, so they're all mechanical down there. And then there's the males that can be butchers. Okay. Others use power fists, basically gauntlets, and you can't really see it because it turns so slowly. But these are melee. Now, there are those that use shotguns. Okay. They even have...
There's a time-limited mission alert available.
Lovely.
Check navigation.
There are... Let's see here. There are many variations of each. Okay. There are even stronger ones, such as a guardsman that use actually electrified pole arms. As you see, this guy, he doesn't even have anything torso down. Poor guy. Now, they do have those that were mentally not truly developed, so they became manics, using claws and teleporting all over the place and laughing like a maniac. Okay. Now, they have flamethrowers. They use shotguns, machine guns, and they can even summon... they're more like, some of them can become Beastmasters, more like. This one, particularly, can summon what is called a hyena, or their kind of hyena. Now, these little buggers are extremely fast, and they hurt a lot. They also have what's called a Drak. Now, these are a bit slower, a bit tough, but they're summoned through a Drakmaster, which I can't seem to find right now. Let me see here if I can type it out. Drakmaster. There we go. Now these dudes, these Drakmasters, they can conjure up. They're Beastmasters. The same with the Hyena Masters. They can conjure up their little four-legged friends. But this one, the Hyena Master, carries a flamethrower that will literally nuke you. Okay? This one has what's called a Hallcar in his hand. A boomerang, a gas-powered boomerang, that has a good chance of stealing your weapon. Okay, now, when you're in a mission and they take your weapon, you have to go grab it. If you do lose it and you finish the mission and you don't manage to get it back, don't worry, you don't lose the weapon. Okay, you just can't use it until you pick it back up again. Now, if you go into Arcwing, you got these floaty dudes. Again, gas-powered balloons that are literally. They're all machines. Really gas-powered machines almost. But there's a whole load of them right there. Captain Vor. Some of their bosses. Captain Vor is probably one of their top, the Queen's top most trusted commander. Okay, he doesn't even have legs, but he commands one of the biggest armies in the entire faction. One of the biggest armies. And in the mission, in the tutorial, actually, you cut him in half, but because he was holding a void key to begin with, he gets sucked into the void, home of the Orokin. Again, we'll get to that in the next video. Or the next episode, rather. And the void energy actually mends him. You see, this is where you cut him in half, but he actually is still alive. Now, another one of the Queen's most trusted commanders is Counselor Vey Heck. Basically, the king politic of them all. Now, this guy is king of augmentations. Literally. This guy, anything that's from the neck down, he is not human whatsoever. Like, even his eyes were replaced. His lips looked like they were dipped in blueberry juice. And his nose is even gone. Okay. Now, there are others that are more, little bit less in command, but are still more trusted. Lich Krill. That rather than following the ancient language, the ancient global or universal language of English in this game, Lich Krill never decided to learn it. So whenever you go to fight him, he literally will talk to you in pure Grineer. Okay. Kala di Tem. Some of their names I can't pronounce very well. But she's basically the female version of Lich Krill. Okay. Again, doesn't speak English, and will actually go to... She's one of the more battle-trained Grineer, female Grineer. Okay. Now, all of them spend time in training to become stronger. Okay. Now, there is what's called the Grustrag 3. Sheik Tau, Vem Tabuk, and the third one I can't find at the moment, which is rather annoying. But anyway, let me see here. Now, their entire ranks are cut off into light mercenaries, the butchers, the flame blades, the power fists, the scorpions, the shield lancers, and the guardsmen. All of those, besides the lancers, are melees. The mediums, which is the ballista, a sniper, an eviscerator, which uses a Grineer gas-powered saw blade, basically. A Helion, which can fly and uses a Grakata. A Lancer, a grounded Helion, basically. An Elite Lancer that is a bit more armored than the normal Lancer. A Scorcher that uses Flamethrower. A Seeker that uses, like, grenades and a little boomstick to him. And a Trooper that uses a shotgun. And their Heavy class, which is a Bombard that fires grenade launchers. A commander that has learned how to switch teleport, much like how Loki can do. And a Drakmaster, again, a Beastmaster. A Heavy Gunner that uses a machine gun. A Napalm that uses exactly what it says, a Napalm. A Manic that is mentally cracked and will claw at you, but has a tendency to teleport. Also, FYI, that's where you get Ash from now, ever since update 17, I think. And the Hyena Master, which is much like the Drac Master, but only female, more ugly, and summons much stronger dudes. Then there's their utility, which is the Drac, and a Latcher, which is basically a mechanical meatball. They just roll around. Okay, and a Roller, again, same thing. They have what's called Regulator, which basically are kind of like morale supporters. Anyone who hears their queens through these regulators, they become empowered. Okay. Now, let's see here, what else is there? In Arcwing, okay, whenever you go to get your Arcwing, there are going to be several others that you don't really fight unless you go to Arcwing, because these enemies are too big to be fitting inside of a normal ship. The Ogma, which is basically a big one, okay, a big digging kind of thing. A Dreg, which is basically a Lancer, but has a higher chance of increasing the chance of you receiving a blast proc, basically. Now, all their bosses. Let's move on to the more important parts of them. Is the bosses. Captain Vor, okay. Captain, or formerly Admiral Vor, is the first boss in Warframe that players must encounter, and is one of the few figures in this game that understands ancient Orokin technology, capable of utilizing it and merging it with Grineer technology to create offensive weapons, such as a trademark Seer pistol that he uses. Also, if you go to kill him on Mercury, that's where you get Seer. Which is empowered by a Void Key and grants him a powerful ranged beam attack. Captain Vor can be encountered in 3 locations currently, making him the most reoccurring, besides assassins, boss to find. First appearing on Mercury, thus being the first boss that the players must fight. Then he appears again, and somehow fully alive, on Phobos, in a dual boss between Lieutenant Lich Krill and Captain Vor. Later, yet again, after you cut him in half from the cinematic in the tutorial, he then gets sucked into the void. The void energy repairs him, and he is fully alive, and he is now reciting into the Vor, or into the void. There we go. Counselor Vahek is the final boss on Earth, aka where you go to farm Hydroid. He is the most political Grineer figure players meet, literally. Marked by the Lotus for extermination of upsetting the balance in the system by killing several political opponents. Vahek is also heavily modified with Grineer alterations. Literally, neck down, he's not human. And little flesh left, noticeable while he rides his giant Terra frame. General Sagras Ruck, or basically a flame user, is a final boss on Saturn, and the head of one of the most Grineer, or head of the Grineer artifact extraction projectiles, basically, or projects, excuse me. Sagras Ruck was targeted by the Lotus for annexing Tano-controlled dig sites. Ruck enjoys Grineer augmentations, even going so far as to replace the lower parts of his arm to a flamethrower, and replacing his normal vision with a single augmentation of a center of his helmet. Literally, he's a flame-throwing Cyclops. Kala D. Tim is the boss of Sedna. According to the Lotus, all female Grineer undergo extreme combat training. However, in Kala's case, she was the most battle-hungry and extended her training on her own terms for another decade. returning to the Grineer court, she returned as one of the most influential person in the entire court. Which is the main reason why Lotus has targeted her for the assassination, as her death would cause a power vacuum in the system. The only female Grineer boss players encounter. She was specifically built for combat, personally by the sisters, or the queens. With most of her body replaced with augmentations, she is not one of the females you want to try and mess with. Lieutenant Lich Krill, where you go to farm Ceres, and also one of the biggest pains in the ass to try and fight besides Counselor Vahek. Lieutenant Lich Krill is the boss on Ceres, and a dual boss on Phobos alongside Captain Vor. A revered war hero clad with a impenetrable armor and armed with his signature hammer. And with cold and heat abilities, Lich Krill is a formidable adversary for anyone who tries to oppose him. Literally, if you aren't careful around him, he will kick your ass. On Ceres, he drops Frosts. On Phobos, he drops Trinity. Tail Rigor. Tail Rigor is the final boss on Uranus, which is the worst name for any planet. I don't know who the hell decided to name it that. And is the head researcher on Grineer gene repair and attempt to reverse the negative effects from extensive cloning. This guy is like the genetic madman focused on research. Literally. He's a lab geek. He spends his days focusing on genetic research in the lab. All damn day. He was targeted by the Lotus in order to slow down this progress, ensuring that the Grineer do not become more powerful than they already are. The Grustrag 3. The Grustrag 3, commonly abbreviated as the G3, and is the assassination group from Counselor Vahek, who come after Tenno and have completed their consecutive invasion missions against Grineer. Basically, think of the Stalker, only 3 of them, less powerful, and only come from the Grineer. Also, in order to only to get a, I guess you could say, a stack from them, is to do invasion missions going against the Grineer, or going against the Grineer. And once you get a stack, then you need to go do Grineer missions, like say do on Ceres, Saturn, whatnot, and they will spawn. Sprag is a Grineer field boss encountered during Orokin sabotage missions, where they must go in, kill Sprag, obtain the Void Portal Key, and is usually accompanied by her sister mini-boss, Venkra Tel. So, in Sabotage Missions Tower 1 and Tower 3, you will encounter them. And Venkra Tel is Sprag's basically little sister, kind of. Or twin sister, rather. And for the Grineer, no one really knows where they're going to end up, but it's right now a fight to try and slow them down. They're like the main power in the entire solar system. Now, onward to the Corpus. Let me see here. The Corpus. The Corpus is a merchant cult found on the salvage technology of robotics. They scavenge the outer system greedily for the old war salvage. Once upon a time, there was an old war between Arokans and something else, I guess you could say. But these guys, again, humans, but rather than using Grineer's way of reproducing, of cloning, they use the natural birthing order. However, they are extremely greedy, and they are very black market-ish. If there's anything that is in trading, they know about it. And the reason why they become bad is because they will sell their wares to anyone, even the Grineer. Which, if they help the main bad dude, that makes them bad as well. Let's see here. They scavenged the outer systems greedily for the old war salvage. They sought after all, the most they sought after all of it all, basically, was the Tenno and their Warframe armor. Those captured are tested as salvage. Dissected, mistreated horribly, integrated, and the remains are sold to the highest bidder. The corpus is Latin for body, are a conglomeration of basically highly technologically advanced humans. They not only use plasma rifles and use ray guns and whatnot, but they also have little robots that help them. Walkers, so perhaps. They use little flying drones that help them. They use, this is what they normally look like without their little mask on. What's that? Let's see here. They have many different types of robots, such as MOAs, which are bipedal turrets, literally.
A new alert has begun.
Huh.
It will be marked on navigation.
Cool. Constitution. There's numerous different types of them. They wield what's called a snipertron. Literally, that's what it's called. They have huge quadruped robots. They have flying ones. And then they have what was called the hyena pack. Basically smaller versions of the jackal, but in, like, there's more of them. Hyena NG, Hyena BP, or PB. Peanut butter! And then there's also some of their more hated bosses is Alet V. One of their strongest robots out of all of them are the Bursas. Bursas are extremely annoying because these guys, even if you are in Rhino's iron skin, you will still be CC'd, crowd controlled. These guys can knock you down, they will shoot at you, they can drag you around, the isolator ones anyways, and they are very, very, very annoying. Now, the Razorback. Basically what you find in Orokin sabotages in Tower 2 and Tower 4. Now, let's see here. All Corpus share the same kind of language that are actually very different rather than the Grineer. The Grineer is much more of a crude kind of one, but the Corpus, their language is a bit more, I guess you could say, advanced, like everything else is they have. And they seek out the trading of the technologies of the ancient Orokans and the warframes that they capture. Their second enemy faction encountered, they are the second enemy faction encountered by the reanimated Tenno. And they are a potent mix of energy weapons and robotic troops. And many Tenno have made the mistake of firing at the Corpus crewman's head only to have the bullet deflect. Because a lot of them, they have a really, really strong headgear on. Their head game is A. The most technologically advanced faction out of the enemies. Certainly more than the Grineer. They use snipers. They use plasma weapons. They use ray guns. Okay. Now, they're, rather than light, heavy, and medium and whatnot, they use different types. The crewmen which they use normal plasma rifles. And then the Detron crewmen, which actually use machine guns. The sniper crewmen, and then there's the elite crewmen, the tech, the prod crewmen, which is basically the melee electronic versions of the scorpions, or the machetes, the butchers. Then there is the nullifier crewmen, probably one of the most hated things, besides the bursts, out of the entire faction. Nullifiers have a little blue bubble around them, or yellow if you're in the Orokin Void. But blue bubble that if you get near it, or if it touches you, all of your channeling abilities, such as Exalted Blade from Excalibur, or Rolled on Fire from Ember, it will be nullified, turned off immediately. And once you're inside that bubble, you cannot turn it back on. You cannot use any abilities. Okay? None of it. And in order to get rid of it, you either have to bust down the bubble through shooting at it, and making it smaller until it eventually just dissipates, or going in the bubble and killing the actual nullifier. Very annoying. Then you also have the walkers. There's the Moa, let's see here. There we go. There's these dudes. Basic little robotic dudes. A turret on 2 legs. Chicken walkers. And there's the railgun Moas, which, the railgun Moas, they actually, what they do is they shoot a burst of energy and hits the ground, and it basically knocks you back if it touches you. And there's the shockwave Moa. There's a shockwave Moa. And these guys, they'll reach up really high with their leg and then they slam down, and creating a shockwave around them. And if they get you, they'll knock you back. Then there is the fusion Moas. Now these buggers, rather than shooting lasers at you, or shooting plasma rifles at you and stomping, they'll shoot lasers at you, a continuous stream of energy that actually burns you, and that can actually put you on fire. Then there is the anti-Moas. The anti-Moas, again, much like how the railgun Moas are, but a lot tougher, I guess you could say. Then we go on to one of their most annoying ones, besides the nullifiers, are the bursas. Oop, if I could type correctly. There is the Denial Bursa, which has a tendency to set you on fire, I guess you could say. But they specialize in zone control and lockdown attacks. Okay, the back of all Bursas have a little hacking control panel that once you damage them enough, they'll get kneeled down and they'll become inactive. Before they become reactive again, you have a slight brief moment of time to hack them, and they'll become on your they'll be on your side. The Drover Bursa has a tendency to be a little bit more relentless. They are heavy artillery. They usually stay in the back, and they will shoot a hellacious amount of artillery at you. And then there is the Isolator Bursa. Usually up on front, and pretty much they isolate you and they tear you away from your squad. They separate you, so there's one-on-one. The Isolator Bursas, they will knock you down with these big main pellets on the front of them. They will hit the ground, knock you down, and then shoot a little wire at you, and they drag you around. Extremely, extremely annoying. Then there is also the Ospreys. If I can not hit the wrong button, go to this. Now, the Oxium Ospreys are pretty much suicidal tendencies. They'll shoot at you a little bit, and then they'll open up like that, and then they'll charge at you. If they hit you, they'll explode and do damage. But if you can kill them before they explode, they'll drop Oxium. And they are the only things that you can get Oxium from. The Shield Ospreys, which provide shields for everyone else that is in their group that's in around them. The Linux Osprey, which you will find them in T2 and T4 sabotages. The Sapping Ospreys, which will... These are all look the same. The Sapping Ospreys, which will basically try and sap your shields. The Mine Ospreys, which will put down mines for you to do. They're all Xmas. Mutalist Ospreys, they're actually... It's part of the Infested. Okay? But rather than shooting at you, when they charge, like an Oxium Osprey does, they leave behind a poison cloud that actually affects your poison, affects your health right on the spot. Right on the spot. Now, their bosses is Alad V. Probably the most hated boss out of the entire thing. And bingo. Alad V, it was the head of Grineer Relations and reported directly to the board of directors. In spite of his position, Alad V showed a particular contempt towards the Grineer, whom he referred to as dogs. And to a lesser extent, the Tenno, who he was most decorated towards, he was more contempt in trying to create his special little helper, Zanuka, over there. He was the most decorated Corpus boss in terms of his envelopments with the enemy events. Basically, the Corpus version of Vor. He's the most reoccurring, kind of. He eventually becomes obsessed with the premise of biological research on the infested and the hopes of creating a very powerful bio-weaponry. Going as far as using technological, or basically using himself at sacrificing his own armor and others to basically form his little project, or Zanuka project. Then there is the Ambulus, which is... Let me find him. Where the hell are you? A Ambulus. Basically a bigger and a hell of a lot stronger Moa is basically what it is. Then there is the Hyena Pack. Now, where the hell are you? The Hyena Pack. Now, all four of these guys, they all have separate little abilities. This one's fire, that one's ice, I believe, that one's electricity, and that one's poison. Okay, they all fight in a group, and they actually is where you get Loki from on if you have to go and find them. As there, they are on the final boss of Neptune. Let's go back to the Ambulus. Resembling a black Moa, but much more dangerous attributes. Besides having high health, alloy armor, and proto shields, it has extremely high damage in a machine gun with two abilities to mirror Fire Blast and Pull, making it a dangerous opponent. The Hyena Pack is the final boss on Neptune, where you find Loki, made up by 4 unique deadly variants of a hyena proxy. They work in packs, with up to all 4 of them possessing their own unique set of abilities. Each hyena possesses a plasma repeater, and they are far more agile than any other enemy. They can... The only other one that's a little bit more agile than them is the Grineer Maniac. And really, I'd say even the Hyena Pack are a bit more agile than even the Maniac, or the Manic. Because these guys can stick to frickin' walls. The Zanuka and Zanuka Hunter, they're a bit more stronger than the hyenas, but they're not as agile, I think. They're just stronger. Jackal, which is what the first robotic Corpus enemy you fight, and is on Venus, where you find Rhino. It has a very strong tendency to stamp on the ground, much like a shockwave Moa, and knock you backwards. It shoots rockets at you, plasma rifles at you, and was basically the first proxy the Corpus had ever implied. So he's one of the weaker ones. Then there is the Linux, which if you do, if you try and do Grineer spy missions and you fail it, the Linux will actually try and come after you. The Raptor, which basically is an Osprey but a hell of a lot stronger, can rain down hell on you. Literally. Let me see. Raptor. Where the hell are you, you little rat? There you are. Really big Osprey. So big you actually think he needs to be an Arcwing, but he isn't. And he drops down. He drops split chamber and whatnot. Neural sensors, organ shatter, reflex coils, stretch, split chamber. And like all Corpus, they're more immune to fire and ice and puncture. But not really ice, but they're less immune to ice and blast. Like if you took impact, magnetic, ice, and all that, that'll really put them on their ass. Then there is the Razorback, which the Razorback really, you find them in, if I'm not mistaken, the Razorback was a Corpus proxy introduced in the Divine Will Tactical Alert a long time ago. The latest creation of Nef Enyo, who boastingly claims it is the most impervious to evil, basically the paladin version of the Jackal. The Sergeant, which basically he was known as Sergeant Nef Enyo, the one who made Razorback, and is the final boss on Mars, who you find Mag at. He is in charge of the Corpus solar rail systems, using them to obtain cryopods with dormant warframes inside for resale and rogue science to splinter groups. When confronted by the player during the mission, he has a very aggressive tone towards the Tenno, giving out death threats and whatnot, and warns the player that they are making a fatal mistake by trying to assassinate him, killing him, basically. He also may demand information regarding the Orokin's secrets, or make fun of the player's warframe or teammates. Basically, the Corpus bully. Then there's also the Zanuka Hunter, basically the Corpus version of the Groostrag 3. Alright. Now, in all, the Corpus and the Grineer. The Grineer is basically a degenerative cloned empire that wants to align everything. And then the Corpus are technologically advanced humans that want to be extremely greedy as all hell and take anything and everything that belongs to them, even if it doesn't, and they'll make profit off of it. It goes so far that they'll sell their own limbs if they have to make profit. Yeah, they're just that damn bad. But anyway, I'm going to leave this one here. That was the lore of the Grineer and the Corpus. On the next video will be the Tenno and their origins, along with the Oricans themselves. Possibly a few tidbits of the Void. But anyway, I'm going to leave this one there. If you liked it, give a like, a subscribe, a follow, and a share. Thank you all for watching, and I do hope you have learned something about the origins of the Warframe game thus far. In any case, if you have anyone that would like to enjoy this content, do share. Subscribe at my YouTube and follow on my Twitch to keep up on all the content that keeps up. Again, I'm making this as a video today because I had missed yesterday's. Life has kind of been rather sped up, so doing a thing for the YouTube community, I guess you could say, hasn't really exactly been I guess you'd say not really top priority, but more or less it has lost its place in the way of time making, kind of. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you in the next one. Later.